BBC News with Sue Montgomery. China's leader Xi Jinping has held an official welcoming ceremony in Beijing for President Macron of France. Mr. Macron said his visit was an opportunity to re-establish close ties following the pandemic. The head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, will also be part of the discussions. Mariko Oy says they'll focus on a range of issues, including the war in Ukraine.
China has always said that it is neutral when it comes to the war in Ukraine. It has refused to condemn Russia's aggression at the United Nations, for example. There have also been allegations that Beijing could be considering providing arms to Russia. That is something that President Macron and Ursula von der Leyen will want to tell Beijing not to do. But also there are other contentious issues like Taiwan. Of course, Taiwan's president has just made that stopover in the United States. Also human rights issues, especially in parts of China.
Taiwan has said it's studying the movements of a Chinese aircraft carrier which has been detected off its east coast. The announcement follows a meeting between Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen and the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy, in California. The meeting has been strongly condemned by China, which views Taiwan as part of its own territory. Mr. McCarthy had this response to warnings from Beijing.
Well, my first message to China, there's no need for retaliation. But the one thing I would say to China, too, at no time, I am the Speaker of the House. There's no place that China is going to tell me where I can go or who I can speak to, whether you be foe or whether you be friend.
Palestinian militants in Gaza have fired more rockets into southern Israel after a second night of clashes at a contested holy site. The latest barrage is not reported to have caused any casualties. Earlier, Israeli forces again stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque site in Jerusalem, known to Jews as Temple Mount, clearing thousands of Muslim worshippers. 6 people were reportedly wounded. Leaders in Sudan have again postponed signing an agreement to re-establish a civilian government as differences between military factions intensify. Sudan has been in turmoil since October 2021, when General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan seized power. Emmanuel Agunza reports from Nairobi.
Last December, the military agreed a roadmap to hand over power to civilians. But the negotiations have stalled due to disagreements over the unification of the National Army and the dreaded paramilitary rapid support forces led by Burhan's deputy Mohamed Hamdan Daglo. The spokesman for the talks, however, says they are still determined to reach a consensus with the military. The factions hope that a final peace deal will unlock millions of dollars frozen by the European Union and the US and help the country's struggling economy.
BBC News. The Japanese government is to boost financial support for the domestic development of semiconductors, which are vital for everything from smartphones to sophisticated weapons. The economy minister said the government was prepared to plough billions of dollars into a newly established chip manufacturer, Rapidus. London's main police force has diverted officers from tackling serious crime and terrorism so they can investigate wrongdoing inside the service. It follows a major review last month which branded the Metropolitan Police as institutionally sexist, racist and homophobic. The head of the Met, Mark Rowley, said it was the first step in the biggest drive on professional standards in 50 years.
I think over the next 2 or 3 years we're going to be removing hundreds of people from this organisation who shouldn't be here. We need to work through the investigations. People would expect fair process. We're bringing independent advisors in to make sure that we're not just marking our own homework. We've got other people looking over our shoulder and checking our judgments. But people will see hundreds going.
The British government says it will review the case of 13 former Gurkha soldiers who are facing deportation after being evacuated from Afghanistan. The Nepalese veterans were working as security guards at the UK's embassy in Kabul when the city fell to the Taliban. They've been living and working in London after being given indefinite leave to remain. But last week they were suddenly detained and told they were being deported to Nepal or India. The Home Office now says their removal has been paused. France is facing another days of strikes and protests after talks between trade unions and the Prime Minister, Elisabeth Borne, failed to make progress. Unions said Ms Borne refused to discuss revoking legislation to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. Commentators say there have been signs the 2.5-month protest movement may be beginning to lose momentum. BBC News.